Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 42. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, as we wrap up week number 7, that win over the New York Jets, and put an eye towards week number 8, Monday night against the New York Giants. So, Dave, our favorite thing, more late games were in this crazy schedule, but winning through it, and we'll take that at the very least.
Yeah, if you're going to lose sleep, at least do so after a win, and makes it a lot more enjoyable going through the All-22, obviously, and got a little bit of a longer week here and a little bit extra prep time when it comes to the Giants. And yeah, exciting time of year right now. And Mike Tomlin press conference was on Tuesday, so we got a lot to talk about there, and several transactions to talk about that took place yesterday, and another trade around the NFL this morning.
Yeah, more receiver trades, not dogging the Pittsburgh Steelers. That has been a constant theme of the season, but we'll touch on that here a little bit later with Cooper Kupp, DeAndre Hopkins, etc. Let's start with those roster moves you mentioned, Dave. Pittsburgh announcing a couple of moves on Tuesday, placing nose tackle Montravius Adams on injured reserve due to a knee injury. Mike Tomlin earlier in the day, Tuesday, ruled Adams out with that injury that suffered one snap into his game against the Jets. He came into that game, popped up on that Friday. Injury report with a knee injury was cleared and off the report essentially, but then something happened that first snap in. Don't know the details, but obviously we'll miss at least the next 4 weeks. Pittsburgh signing cornerback C.J. Henderson to their 53-man roster off their practice squad, former first-round pick of the Jaguars. Also spent time with Carolina and this summer with Houston. Was signed by Pittsburgh earlier this year to the practice squad, give them some cornerback depth, which may be helpful with Dante Jackson's injury, although that seems to be just a shoulder injury he's fighting through, nothing incredibly serious he's dealing with. Team also bringing back old friend Braden Fehoko to the practice squad. Big burly nose tackle, run stuffer, was with the team in training camp, suffered a left shoulder injury about week into August, got put on IR, and then waived with an injury settlement, and then brought back. And so he'll provide some depth on the practice squad. So those are all the roster moves to talk about.
Yeah, interesting with Henderson finally going up to the 53. And boy, they've been trying to skate through with the low number of cornerbacks overall. So you would have to think at this point, especially with Jackson kind of banged up there a little bit at the corner position, I would guess that Henderson probably going to dress at least this coming week here.
Yeah, hadn't worked out all the configurations of inactives. We'll talk about that for the Monday show, I suppose, based on other roster moves they make, but would not be surprising. Also, in some of the language that was initially reported from Ian Rappaport, kind of sounded like some teams were trying to poach him off the Steelers practice squad. And so teams are afforded the opportunity to elevate and sign their own guy to the 53 if another team comes calling and tries to poach. And so it sounds like that might have been a factor. But yeah, Pittsburgh has had 4 corner stress for the last couple of weeks. And with Dante Jackson going down in that game against the Jets, they were down to 3. So much so that even on that very last snap, the Jets ran that run play where Pittsburgh put in their backups. Patrick Queen was off the field. Mink is off the field. Mark Robinson got his first snap of the season. Joey Porter had to be out there because they needed 3 corners, and all they had was 3 corners. So it was still Porter and Pierre and Beanie Bishop. So just to kind of encapsulate, they were really, like you said, skating pretty thin at corner, provide some depth there. Henderson, pedigree guy, first-round guy, a Steelers type of guy to take the chance on. Obviously had a really bad time at Jacksonville. Only lasted, I think, a year and a half there. Then got dealt to Carolina. Teammates with Dante Jackson there, was pretty middling. Went to Houston, couldn't capture a spot there. So Pittsburgh will try to find that magic again, but hopefully Anderson is not really needed. That means his team will be healthy and playing well.
Yeah, that's the key thing, because you really got to like the shape that you're your normal secondary is out there, at least right now. And Cameron Sutton, not too many more weeks to go before you get him back in the fold again. So hopefully they can keep this thing together. And, it sounded pretty positive overall from what Mike Tomlin said about Jackson yesterday. And even Casey, I think he said, probably was closer to playing than not playing. So probably going to hopefully get him back this week as well.
Has there been any word on Cam Sutton practicing? My understanding with the suspensions was that guys could be able to practice 2 weeks before their suspension ended, but I've not heard anything. Maybe that was just a case-by-case basis situation. I know he's eligible. This is really his last week of suspension. Obviously, he won't play in week 9 because Pittsburgh is off, but
Right.
he can, his suspension still has to, I guess, be officially reinstated by Roger Goodell, has to, I think, apply, and it might be a roster exemption, all that kind of stuff. But have you heard anything about him practicing yet?
No, I haven't. Haven't looked too deep into that. I might do that after we get off the podcast to try to refresh my memory how the suspended players are handled in that. Now, we could potentially, while we're on this podcast today, either today or tomorrow, get windows open on guys, because I think didn't Mike Tomlin mention Tyler Matakavich? Is it? We haven't had the window open on Matakavich yet, right?
No, he's been eligible for a couple of weeks, but
Right.
it has not officially been open. I imagine that's going to happen today.
Yeah, so we might have things either during this show or tomorrow before. I would think they're going to have a bonus practice today, right?
Yeah, I think the practice schedule is going to be Wednesday through Saturday because of the Monday game. So I think they get that bonus day in there. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, all this will come out in the wash probably in the next 24 hours.
Let's talk about injuries a little more in depth in Mike Tomlin's press conference, and mention Mont Adams being out and now on IR, so lost there. But overall, Pittsburgh is trending in a positive direction health-wise, a statement we've not been able to say that often this year. So as you said, Mike Tomlin seemed optimistic about Tyler Matakavich returning. That would require that practice window opening. He's been on IR since week 2 against the Broncos. Cordell Patterson is in a position to return. According to Mike Tomlin, Patterson's been out since week 4, getting hurt mid-game with that ankle injury. So Pittsburgh's backfield, their top 3 has been healthy for a combined, how many games this year? 1, 2, 1.5. Like Warren was kind of healthy and active, but not fully there for week 1 in the Chargers game. So, it'll be good to hopefully get Patterson back and just have your 1, 2, 3 actually be your 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I agree on that. What game did Patterson? Was it the Colts game that he went down? Okay, yeah. So feels like overall it felt like a good. You hate to lose Montravius Adams, obviously, but overall it felt like a pretty decent health update on the team. It does not sound like though that they're going to get Frazier or Nick Herbig back this week, and especially the way Mike Tomlin talked about Ryan McCollum better get ready this week for sexy Dexy Lawrence on the Giants there. But I would anticipate Herbig and Frazier. We'll see what kind of practice level they get. Mike Tomlin had a little tidbit at the end, but I you'd probably agree with me, but that those two are probably going to be out this week, and obviously Adams on IR. But it sounds like guys like Matakavich and Patterson and Casey and some of those guys are going to be in serious consideration this week.
It does sound like it. Yeah, Casey should be good. Jackson will be good. Matakavich got a good chance, as does Patterson. And yeah, on Herbig and Frazier, all Tomlin said was nothing to add in terms of their availability. So I assume status quo. They were ruled out last week. I assume they're not going to play in this one either. Hopefully can come back after that week 9 bye.
All right.
Who will be this team's backup nose tackle with Adams out? Is it going to be, not that it's that needed of a position, but you never know, something happens to Benton. Is it going to be like Dean Lowry? Are they going to mix and match? I wonder how they're going to handle that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess let's see. Elevations this week would not take place until Monday afternoon, several hours before game time. Feels like that'd be a little quick for a guy like Fehoko, right?
And also, just do you want to burn the elevation
right
on him? Yeah, ended up never playing a snap for Pittsburgh last year. He was active for the one game, maybe against the Raiders, and didn't play. So think maybe you just try to get through with a Dean Lowry type to play nose tackle to try to finish things out would be my guess.
Right. And we've obviously at times, unfortunately, had to watch Cameron Hayward shift inside there. So,
yeah, I don't want to see that again. I think you can probably have some flexibility to avoid that, but hopefully it won't be needed much. It won't be needed much if Ben is able to stay healthy in this one. All right, Dave, Mike Tomlin's press conference. Also should mention Roman Wilson. I'm not entirely sure what his status is for this game. He was asked about what Wilson Tomlin was and talked about that it seemed like a combination of his rookie inexperience and the injury just didn't leave him in a good place to suit up for this one, but I didn't really get good clarity on his status for this week.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin just said, look, once he, in so many words, once he was limited participation, he turned his attentions elsewhere. And when did he pop up on there? It was Thursday, right? For Roman Wilson. So, this could be another week where we'll obviously see what happens with Patterson and Casey and how some of these other guys and Matakevich and how that kind of formulates out there. And I think at least in the early look at your inactive list, you're going to have a number 3 quarterback. That's probably going to be Kyle Allen. You're probably going to have Nick Herbig down. You're probably going to have Zach Frazier down. Oh Lord, who else likely to be down? That's 3 right there of at least 5.
It sounds like Roman will be down because at the least Patterson, if he's healthy, will be that emergency number 5 receiver, which is what he was doing earlier this year.
Right. And you still have Shamklin on the 53, right? So unless he got moved, and if you got Patterson back, and Shamklin was inactive last week, so if he's not moved off of the 53, probably a good shot Shamklin ends up on the inactive list as well, too.
Yeah, sure. Now, there's other things to consider. Got to mention, and Tomlin didn't mention his name, but Dylan Cook, will he get activated this week? He was full on Friday. He got that window open last Thursday. It sounds like he might be in a position to be activated this week. And if so, then that'll create a need for a roster spot. Will that be Shamklin? Will that be Calvin Anderson? Somebody else? We'll see, but I also want to keep an eye on Dylan Cook, the backup tackle.
Well, the thing is with they've only been normally dressing 8 offensive linemen. If they did put Dylan Cook back on the 53, then you would think they would do so with the notion of dressing him. So then that could cost Calvin Anderson that would probably be the route that you take if you put Cook on the 53, would be to let loose of Anderson.
Yeah, that would make sense there. But I'm just trying to work out some of the potential roster moves that may be coming down the pike here by Monday.
Right. It'll all play. Something's going to happen. We just don't know to what extent and what exactly. But obviously, practice time for some of those injured guys coming back will be key in this.
What stood out to you overall during the Tomlin press conference? By the way, and at this point, I think he's doing it for sport more than gamesmanship, but did not officially announce a Week 8 starter. I think he's just kind of leaning into the secrecy, at least the attempt at secrecy. We know it'll be Rusell Wilson, but Tomlin's still not really offering much direct commentary on the roles of Wilson and Justin Fields. And that question came up a time or two in that press conference, and Tomlin did a nice job swatting things down.
I think he's just having a little bit of fun there. I think he kind of even giggle at that point, because he's obviously talked about Rusell Wilson and what he wants to see out of him and the offense moving forward earlier in the press conference, and what steps he wants to take and all like that. I mean, I don't think he liked the angle of them just trying to pin him down in it,
I still wonder, what is your reaction, interpretation, if any, to Justin Fields not playing a single snap against the Jets? Now, we talked about some of those situational things are, as the name implies, situational and circumstantial. No guarantee of how many chances you'll get to be in those moments to maybe deploy Fields per game, but they were in a couple of those moments, some sneak situations. Wilson had at least 2 quarterback sneaks, some, low red zone, short yardage type stuff, and they still chose not to use Fields. Is that a sign that they don't have an intention to do so going forward, or was it just a one-off, one game thing, and you shouldn't read too much into that game plan about how it might apply to Fields going forward?
I think it was just a one game thing overall, and they just felt like they didn't have the need to do it. I was surprised that we did not see Justin Fields out there at least a handful of snaps, but I think this will be on a game by game basis with him moving forward. Look, here's the thing: if you're the opposition at this point, you've got to prepare for him, and Mike Tomlin probably likes that aspect of it, and he probably wants to keep teams guessing. Was there probably a potential, or at least them looking at the idea of maybe getting Justin Fields in a certain situation in that game? I suppose, but I would also guess that those few unique situations just didn't present themselves overall to this team. So I do not think we've seen the last snap for Justin Fields. I think I feel pretty comfortable in saying that this year. They just didn't feel the need to do it against the Jets, and we'll see what happens Monday night there.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree. And I do think, like you said, we talked about this before the season began, even just the threat and the potential of using Fields will make teams have to spend 20 minutes of a practice to rep it and to look at it and to go over, okay, when Fields enters the game, here's their run concept, here's what they like to do, here's how we have to defend it. And so anything you can do to eat up their time can certainly be helpful. I think at some point you probably need to show it to kind of remind teams, hey, we still could do this. So maybe against the Giants, you put him out there for a snap to make sure that's out there on tape, so teams kind of don't get comfortable and go, oh, they're not doing it with Wilson in the lineup, so we're not going to really spend a lot of time talking about it. I think you probably want to show it. It's also just good for your team, and Fields is effective, and you don't want him on the bench the rest of the year as the backup to Rusell Wilson. So I think we'll see it. But yeah, like you said, one game, not going to read into how one game might dictate the next 10 games, how many games are left.
Yeah, agreed.
What else here from Mike Tomlin? I thought his commentary, you kind of mentioned it about that matchup on the Giants and Dexter Lawrence, really interesting. McCollum almost certainly going to start in this one. Tomlin gave McCollum a double thumbs up, as he did earlier this year to Spencer Anderson, Mason McCormick, about the play of McCollum in this one. So, got good marks there, but Dexter Lawrence, a whole different guy. And I think the quote of the press conference from Tomlin was, we better give Ryan McCollum more than just good luck, or whatever he said. Better do more than just wish him good luck. And that's certainly true, because defending Lawrence is going to take more than just one man.
Yeah, look, at least he had a nice little warm up against Williams there with the Jets and all like that. But Lawrence is definitely a beast, and high number of sacks. And look, that front's been able to get after the quarterback overall, and that's a dangerous group up front for the Giants when it comes. I mean, it's the core really of what they do defensively, is getting that pressure and getting the sacks there. I do agree that Ryan McCollum deserved the double thumbs up for that game, but that's one game, and as Mike Tomlin said, this week is a new week, and with new weeks comes new challenges, and some of them big in the form of Dexter Lawrence. So they're going to spend a lot of time on game planning on how to control him, and that's not going to be a one-man job for Ryan McCollum either. But the good news is you got some beef in the center with Isaac Seumalo and Mason McCormick, who I really have been impressed with. Mason McCormick's play overall. I think there obviously is some things for him to clean up. Very excitable young man. Not only on there's that obviously that viral clip coming going around with him doing the windmill arm and all like that, but there are other instances like the Najee Harris run down the left-hand side where he's chasing down the field. Very excitable young man, and there is a lot to like about them, and they definitely have some beef in the interior to book in Ryan McCollum, I think, to potentially get the job done on Dexter Lawrence. Now, here's the thing. This was kind of prototypical probably, and I think you probably best phrased it in one of the tweets that you put up yesterday about the run pass distribution that this team had against the Jets, and how that's right up Arthur Smith's alley there. Ideally, you don't want your quarterback dropping back 35, 40 times a game in this offense. They want to be able to run the football, control the clock, convert, throw occasionally on early downs, which they obviously did in this last game here. But the way you keep the opposing team from sacking the quarterback is not have to drop your quarterback back so many times. So it will be a challenge. I think how they run the football obviously will be a key factor in this game against the Giants once again. and that's how you kind of help control Dexter Lawrence and the damage that he could do, especially as a pass rusher.
Just in the way that when the opposition plans for TJ Watt, you talk about getting 4 hands on him. So essentially a lot of double teams. You got to get 4 hands on Dexter Lawrence because, he's 2 people essentially, the way he eats up blocks in the middle. And he's not just a run stopper, as Tomlin said. Dude's got 9 sacks. He's leading the NFL in sacks, a 340-pound nose tackle, leading the NFL in sacks. So it's going to be a 4-hand, 2-man job the entire time. That is going to open up some one-on-one chances on the outside. And they got a really good pass rusher in Brian Burns. We'll talk about the Giants later this week. I don't want to get too much into their stuff, but they got a really good pass rusher in Burns on the outside. So you want to double team Lawrence, you need to, but that's going to create those one-on-one chances out there on the outside for Burns versus, Jones or Moore, wherever he's going to line up at.
And look, I said this a couple of weeks ago after they had lost Daniels and lost Troy Fautano and all. I mean, you obviously hate to see this many offensive linemen go down, but it could be worse even with the 5 that they're rolling out there right now. That includes Ryan McCollum over center, and Dan Moore's just having a fantastic year. Overall, you obviously got Sayamalo back in the fold a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, Frazier went down, and you're having to go through a couple of games without him. But Mason McCormick's been I don't know what more you can really ask for in his development at this point, especially switching over to right guard. And then obviously the weak link in there is Broderick Jones over at right tackle. But I mean, there were at least some positive snaps, some things for him to hang his hat on in that game against the Jets. Overall, there was obviously a lot of negative to go along, but they're not. They're going to stick with him and try to get him through this. And Mike Tomlin, overall had positive things to say about Broderick Jones yesterday during his press conference.
He did. I'll pull up the quote here. He said, quote, "I like the solid trajectory of his growth and development. He had some challenges early on in team development. He missed some time and so forth due to minor injuries, but largely just looking at the trajectory of his play, I'm pleased with it. I like the professional approach that he brings to work. And I just think he's moving in the right direction and it needs to continue," end quote. I'm sure many would disagree with that assessment of Broderick Jones' play, and I would probably be in that camp as well. I mean, it feels like he's barely hanging on a lot of snaps. Maybe the sacks aren't being given up. He did give up the one that Wilson took off that max protect play action against the Jets. His head is at every single block. His hands are always wide. It's just technically, it's just a mess. To me, it's not about lack of athleticism or him playing on the right side. He played on the right side as a rookie and looked far better, far more technical. I just watched the way that Dan Moore punches, often with independent hands, and his good strike and placement. And I see that juxtaposed with Jones, and it's just a night and day difference there. So I don't want to make this the rail against Broderick Jones podcast, but hard to really see, where Tomlin's coming from with those comments.
Yeah, and once again, saying that he had positive snaps against the Jets, obviously most of those came in the run game and kind of like in washout type situations, those kind of things. I mean, even the final touchdown that Najee had, he gets reverse pancaked on that one. Najee has to dodge him before he even gets to pressing the line tight. And it was a very good job by Najee overall, because he has to avoid the trash there, and then he had to press the line, and then obviously the lane to the left opened up and scooted through that way. So I mean, it just boils back. Would you like it to be better from tackle to tackle overall than it is right now? But once again, I think from the state of what this team has gone through as far as injuries so far, it's manageable, and I think it can even be built on. And, obviously I think the key things to watch in this game against the Giants is going to be the center position with McCollum and your right tackle position with Broderick Jones.
And I'll just say it's been good to at least find out about these young guys earlier, even if it's under less than ideal circumstances, to find out, okay, who is Mason McCormick? He was supposed to be a guy that didn't play this year. And then you go into the offseason saying, okay, Daniel's a free agent. He'll be really expensive. Do we re-sign Daniels? Do we roll the dice on McCormick? How's he going to play? We're not really sure. you're going to have a lot of information and evaluation on guys like McCormick and Frazier out of the gate. He may have still started out of the gate, had her big knock gotten hurt, but we're not quite sure. And so you got to get the full evaluation from Frazier from the get-go. So at least there's been some getting to know the young guys, even if you got to know them a bit earlier than you wanted to.
Let me tell you, barring injury, Mason McCormick ain't going to that back to that bench.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
That guy can obviously play either guard position for you at this time now. So that's if anything that's come out of this, you did get to learn about him. You get the clock started on him earlier, and I really think he has answered the bell. Nice. So I'd like to see his pad level get more consistent. In run game, he's got a little bit of that Jackson Powers Johnson in him, where he will tend to rise up a little bit and be the highest hat, I think, sometimes in there. But when he does keep that pad leverage and comes off the ball lower, look, you can really see the foot action and a change of direction overall with him. Wasn't he one of those ones that, who's that one guy that
Josh Norris does the short shuttle thing? Yeah, one of those guys.
I could not help but we roll back to that probably 5 times a year during the podcast about that stat, and obviously closer to draft time. But moving forward, that's got to be in both of our notebooks. Not that it probably hasn't been already, but that short shuttle time on these interior guys is something that definitely holds water. And I think you can see some of those things. Now, he still does a lot of that skip pulling overall. I would like to see a more, I'd like to see him more traditional. Look, one of those pulls that he had a log block that thing back to the inside. So
on the Harris big run.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that was a big block.
Because I think probably that if you draw it up, that's probably more of a designed to be kick out. But the fact that he reads that and log blocks that back to the inside shows his ability to think on his feet, adjust, and all like that. So, and look, it wasn't that I didn't think he could move to the right side. It was just from you roll back to the whole Kevin Dotson thing, right? You had a guy in Kevin Dotson that, 99.999% of his snaps were played at right guard, and you kind of wondered how that would translate with him being shifted over to left with the Steelers, and that didn't go swimmingly well. And then obviously you had a guy like McCormick who spent 99.9% of his time at left guard in college there. It was just a thing that you wonder how it will go because of a guy predominantly playing sides, but he is no question in my mind he can play both guard spots right now. And how great is that? And once again, this is going to be a guy that's going to be, barring him getting injured, that's one of your guards moving forward for the next several years now.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be guard of the future for sure. And you're right. The issue is not that to say that he couldn't move to right guard. It just, there's a big bag of unknown. Some guys can do it. Some guys can't. It just depends on, how comfortable they are and right hand dominant, left hand dominant, and being able to flip and make that mental switch. It just varies from guy to guy. The skip pull, I'm not against the skip pull. I just figured you don't see that in the NFL too often. Pittsburgh uses a square pull, but I think they've changed a lot with McCormick and flipping sides and different techniques. They probably just said, keep the skip pull. If it works, it works. We're not going to change more and more technique if we don't have to. So if that is effective, then by all means, that's fine. And the Josh Norris thing, for people that don't know, he's been tracking. There's a really strong correlation between linemen who run a short shuttle 4.47 seconds or better and NFL success. And McCormick ran it in 4.45 seconds. So kind of made the list of those guys that have been able to have that kind of rare athleticism have typically correlated to good NFL careers. McCormick looking to be the next in that list of names.
All right. What else from Mike Tomlin?
At this point, I just assume the NFL calls Tomlin every Monday and says, here's what we got wrong about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Because for the second time this season, the NFL has admitted they've made a mistake with a Minkah penalty that was incorrectly called against him. There was the one, what game was that? The Colts game where he got called for that?
Yeah, A.D. Mitchell on the sideline.
Yeah, and they said that was wrong, which it was. And they admitted again against the Jets that Minkah was incorrectly called for leveraging, that negated and wiped out the blocked extra point that he had, which ended up being really costly because the Jets ended up going for 2 and converting there to make it 15-6. And so the NFL admitted what we all saw, that was not leveraging by Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Right. Yeah. Let's hope we're not having to have Mike Tomlin explain phone calls with New York many more times when it comes to really anything, and particularly Minkah Fitzpatrick the rest of the year here. Let's see. When Cam Hayward is 45, you'll still have problems moving him out of a gap. Agree or disagree? React to me.
Well, if it's me, he can be 95. I won't be able to move out of his gap. But point taken. And yeah, Tomlin was asked about Hayward's longevity, playing in game 202 this weekend. I think that's going to be the most by any defensive player in Steelers history, passing up Mel Blount and Donnie Shell. He'll only be trailing the likes of, who is it? Ben Webby and I think Hines Ward. And so obviously an exclusive list, no matter how you want to slice it. And Tomlin talked about when you're kind of a power guy and somebody built on strength, that stays longer than athleticism, than finesse. And those were the points we made earlier where we said this is a guy that still looks strong. Even last year on one leg, still had his strength, just couldn't move, couldn't fire off the football. And so that strength will last longer and it doesn't decay as quickly as the athleticism. And that's really allowed Hayward to, again, be one of, if not the best defense lineman in football this year.
Boy, he's playing, and there are good things on this tape where he just olays one of the guards in one of these pressure types or against a run. It was a run stop on that particular one there. But he's showing up weekly doing the things that we've seen him do for the last, obviously, most of his career. So it's good to see there. All right, let's kind of get to an elephant in, not so much an elephant in the room, but I mean, we've talked a lot about kind of the things that Rusell Wilson, we hope to see out of him in this offense. One of those being play action and the effectiveness of this, and it, without a doubt, statistically and tape wise, it was effective in this game. Mike Tomlin, and you did a fantastic film room on it, and I mean, I think it was kind of evident, at least with what the Jets were doing defensively. Mike Tomlin tried to tamp it. I was kind of surprised by his react with kind of the wording that he used. What did you think about Mike Tomlin's description and effectiveness of the Rusell Wilson play action?
I don't know if I was surprised. It was an old school mentality. He was asked, what is basically the key to good play action? And he said effective running game, having a strong running game and a desire to run the ball creates good play action. And so that's the old school thought that people have had, for decades. There's kind of this newer school thought of you don't have to have a top 5 running game for play action to be effective. You have to be able to sell the run. And if you sell the run, defenses will still have to respect it and key in on it. And that still opens up play action. So, but I'm not surprised that's Tomlin's kind of old school thought and how this whole offense is built around trenches, ground game, play action. Off of that, he did downplay Wilson's success with play action and kind of said, he literally said it's a 1 game, sample size, and maybe the Jets were playing more man coverage. And I can get that. You don't want to be overreactionary to 1 game, but I mean, you look at the tape, you watch how these guys execute their play fakes. It's a pretty big difference. So I'm confident in saying that Wilson is better executing those play fakes than Fields, and that certainly has an impact on the illusion and selling run to defenses.
Look, the mechanics alone are obvious, right?
Yeah, I put up just 2 random clips of them executing fakes on top of each other in one video to really get that good comparison, and there's a clear difference.
All right, but it is a 1 game sample, and everything needs context, and we'll obviously start hopefully seeing more of that to evaluate here moving forward. But I thought it was very useful, and I think statistics back this up, that you don't necessarily have to have a juggernaut run game for play action to be successful.
Agreed. But the bottom line is play action was successful in this game, and it hadn't been the first 6 weeks. And given how much of a staple, how much of an integral part play action is to Pittsburgh's offense, you need a guy that can have success off of it. And you certainly felt Wilson have a ton of success for whatever reason in this game.
All right, and he talked about what he thought overall of Russell Wilson, and kind of, as he settled in. He talked about his poise, and his experience was really evident. He was unmoved and unshaken by the lack of fluidity with the start. But I think that's kind of reflective of a guy that's done it at a high level for over a decade, a guy that's a world champion, a guy that's whatever, 9-10 Pro Bowler. He's just seen a lot in this game, and that's in his back pocket, just like his throwing abilities, and it gets you in and out of circumstances. Certainly, he goes on to be asked what the next step he wants to see would Russell Wilson take. And it was an obvious answer: play winning football and to engineer and construct victory more fluidly. And I think that's our goal as a collective, or subsections of that collective every week. How can we engineer victory more consistently and more fluidly? Look, the big thing on Russell Wilson, it was kind of a tale of two halves, if you will, overall for him. You got to compliment Russell Wilson, because the crowd obviously was booing early on, for Russell Wilson to work through that, not let it shake him. Definitely shows his experience overall. I think he won a lot of people over overall. But I think now, when it comes to moving forward, and the rust excuse can knocking the rust off can't be highlighted anymore. I think you want to see this team get off to, and we've said it, from
Forever.
week one,
Before last year.
I mean,
3 years ago.
last 3 years, right? Can this team start fast, and by fast, can they march down the field in 7, 8, 9, 10 plays and punch it into the end zone and get that 7-0 lead? Look fluid in the process. Maybe have an explosive play mixed in with all that. Run the ball at five yards a clip. Stay on schedule. Stop the stupid penalties. All those little things are things that you're looking for out of Russell Wilson moving forward. It just felt, both in the TV tape and the All-22, that he really had a good command of the offense. You could obviously see a lot of checks and signals and things going on. I don't think were there any. What was we had the ineligible on one play, had the holding call and ineligible downfield on one of them. What else was there? I mean, they only had, what they have, like 3 penalties in the game overall?
4 total.
Right.
Trying to think what those other ones were. There was the leveraging penalty, which
Right.
was not a penalty, so there was that. I'll look through the other ones here while you talk.
It looked and felt cleaner overall, as far as people lining up right, and you didn't see, at least it didn't stick out on a lot of bad routes or anything. The effort obviously looked fine throughout this thing on it, but just the biggest thing with him, or in this offense in general, is in so many words, just got to be more fluid right from the get-go. They got to come out of the locker room and be ready to march down the field there. And I think if you roll back specifically, and if you want to look at there is a lot of people that still don't want to give Russell Wilson and Mike Tomlin their flowers for what happened against the Jets. I was one of the first ones to say the other day on our podcast, right, that if you want to criticize anything about the pushing the football down the field with Russell Wilson, was a couple of those balls were underthrown, if we want to be honest with each other. And since then, a lot of people have kind of highlighted that. I don't disagree with that, but it is the fact, though, that you are pushing the football down the field, and you are getting specifically your 2 best players in the passing game, and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, opportunities to make plays. That's what those guys are there for. So would you like to see it cleaner, as far as not underthrowing some of these? Yeah, maybe hopefully that will come. I think that'll be one thing to definitely watch in these games moving forward with Russell Wilson. And then obviously the inaccuracy early. I mean, if you look just at a completion percentage stat only, which is, can obviously be dangerous to do overall, not having the full context of every pass, but 16 of 29 overall. I mean, you definitely want to see that up closer to 70% there. Now there were, it looked like one of those early just didn't have a good grip of the football for whatever reason, and then it looked shaky. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, for even someone like me has said, yeah, I think this is a right decision for this team to turn to Russell Wilson after all that we had seen from Justin Fields. Yeah, my eyebrows were raised a little bit early in this game, but I think as he kind of knocked the rust off and got settled in, I thought there were good instances. Man, that him having to reset real quick on that one where they on the crosser to Pat Freiermuth, where the didn't take the end didn't take the cheese on that, gets right on his face, and his ability to kind of reset in a hurry, change the arm angle, and get the ball out to Pat Freiermuth and get nearly damn near a double explosive play out of that was super impressive. In that situation. I thought Russell Wilson read the field and read the coverages wisely overall, but there's no way that you can't come out of this game overall and give Russell Wilson some sort of flowers, right?
Sure, it was a great game. They put up 37 points. They had a ton of explosive plays. I mean, he did what this offense has been searching for, and the reason why Tomlin made the switch and took that chance to try to get this offense to another level, which they showed in this game. Penalties, by the way, 2 offensively. The McCollum one, you mentioned, Pat Freiermuth also called for a hold. Defensively, the other 2 was the special teams to leveraging on Minka, and the Ogunjobi unnecessary roughness on that throw down there, which I think was a little ticky-tack, but the way they called that one early on in that game. So those were the penalties. But overall, certainly not the impactful killers, especially offensively, that were hurting you before.
Exactly.
I thought Wilson, the pass game, like you said, like Tomlin said, it never maybe got into a crisp rhythm where it was like a lot of consecutive quick game completions and just kind of rolling along. It really was relying on the chunk plays, but they needed some chunk plays, and you throw the ball up to Pickens and let your guys that are capable of winning in those situations have a chance to win. So I'm not mad at it, but I think Tomlin's right to say probably want a little more crispness and fluidity, because you're not going to bank on winning all the jump balls every single week. And that Jets defense, in fairness, was really beat up. They were missing people. I think it's not often that I really spend much time thinking about the opposition's game plan. I think the Jets had a terrible game plan against Pittsburgh's offense. The way that they didn't shadow Sauce with Pickens, the way that they played their DBs on the same level, the way that they played so much man coverage, they were just getting picked and rubbed the entire game. And they really made no adjustments to it. They didn't communicate well. And so I think the Jets were kind of a mess defensively, but I'm not discrediting what Pittsburgh did. They went out there, made the plays, and got the win.
Look, you got to adjust to whatever the defense is doing on the other side of the ball. And a couple of the biggest plays in this game were rub type situations. On the one on Freiermuth, the deep ball, that's a mirrored concept on both sides, where both groups of wide receivers are doing the same thing. They had the deeper safety on Pickens' side to kind of help bracket with that. So that gives you a reason why Russell Wilson went the other way. But on top of that, those corners on that other side played it a lot different. They were on the same level as opposed to the ones on the other side who were stacked more, that allowed them to adjust and go under or over how they had to do to attack the rub off. And then Van Jefferson, I thought, didn't I say this the other day that I thought for sure that that was setting up to be potentially a pick on him? Well, when you go back and look at it, Van Jefferson did a fantastic job of getting right up on the DB and then kind of standing straight up to avoid the contact. And that, of course, freed Freiermuth off, and it ended up being a great rub. And then obviously Russell Wilson connected down the field. There were a couple of even the touchdown to Van Jefferson. They played that awful. They had no the way, and credit to George Pickens to the way he ran his route on that. But the way that they had no chance really to I guess, unless they banjoed that off a lot quicker and identified it. But the way the routes were run, there was no way, because of the two DBs being at the same level.
Yep.
I mean, that was going to be an easy pitch and catch probably in any way it went. So they did not do a good job on that rub there. The wide open over to Austin, was that because Pickens carries the route vertically there? Is that more the pace of the route that caused the rub? But if you see at the end of that play, the DB that ended up having to chase across there kind of looked back, and I almost want to think that was a bust.
I just think they didn't communicate it well, where Austin is running underneath Pickens, and in that case, the Jets were playing on different levels, and so Sauce is on the outside, right. The slot corner's inside, and Sauce can't get over the top, and never even really ends up trying. So yeah, I mean, they just didn't communicate. They didn't pass things off well. Their DBs were playing at the same level in bad situations on the goal line, in particular, as you talked about in that Jefferson touchdown. So they just really did not have good answers for Pittsburgh's bunches and stacks and rubs and switch verticals, and Pittsburgh was getting open all day long.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what else? I guess since we're talking All-22, just kind of dive into this one from what we saw in the All-22 tape of this game, starting with the offense. To me, the game plan was super simple. I mean, they did not run a ton of concepts in this one, which is fine. It was really, the run game was two concepts, essentially. Crunch, which they ran literally a half dozen times in this game, which is those double wham blocks, kind of a quick hitting play that never quite worked exactly how Pittsburgh intended to, but overall had some decent success. And then crack toss, which had mixed results. There was some success with it, especially later in the game, but certainly some negativity there. And then in the pass game, it was just bunches and stacks and play pass and bootlegs. I mean, it really was just like either vertical pass game on switch releases or boots to the flat to the tight end. Those were basically the two concepts they ran, and they ran it to great success.
Yeah, a lot of levels to one side, right? Especially from the first completion of the game. There, they made it kind of really a limited menu. It felt like overall with this thing. Obviously, mixed in some inside zone. I don't think we saw. Did we see any split zone at all in this?
I think like one snap I remember seeing.
Right. But I thought the running game got stronger, obviously, as the game got on. But I think I calculated this morning too. One thing that we had talked about, 1st and 10 with this team. I think they had like 24, 25 1st and 10 situations, and I think on 11 of those they gained 4 yards or more on overall. And then as far as negativity on those 1st and 10 plays, lost yard. Let's see, as far as exact negativity and lost yardage, their only one I'm seeing came at 4:20 in the 4th quarter with Warren, right guard, for -1 yards on that. Now, they did have a 1-yarder early in the game on obviously the Wilson scramble. They had a 0-yard, no gain on a Wilson incomplete. Okay, that was an incomplete pass. But if we're talking, let me.
There was the sneak, which will mitigate and influence the numbers a little bit, because I came on that first play after the Beanie interception, second Beanie interception.
Yeah. I mean, you had a couple of 1-yarders and 0-yarders, but for the most part, I mean, several of your explosive plays. The Freiermuth pass for 30 yards came on a 1st and 10 situation. You had a Jaylen Warren left guard on a 1st and 10 for 10 yards. You had the Najee first play of the 4th quarter left guard for 34 yards. So this team actually, and earlier in the game, Najee for 18 yards on a 1st and 10. So they did a much better job overall, I thought, on 1st and 10, which kind of gets swept under the carpet overall. But staying on schedule is obviously very important for this offense with what they want to do. If you're gonna run a lot of multi-tight end personnel groupings, the way this team was expected to do and is doing, you got to get those guys involved in the passing game. And it's good to see them start to do that more, specifically with Darnell Washington. And now that's they've done it enough the last couple of games now where teams have got to respect Darnell Washington, potentially, chipping, blocking, releasing, getting out in there and getting the football in his hand. So I think that's one thing that might get. It's easy just to look at it and say, look at the catches that he's getting, but the fact that they're actually doing that specifically in these last 2 games is something that I think opposing defenses now have to sit up and take notice of.
Yeah, I mean, on those catches from Washington and Frymouth, it is the same concept. They just dress it up in different ways. It is day one install stuff where it's a play action. You're going to get something in the flat. You're going to get an over route coming across from backside to front side, and you're going to get usually a corner route. So it's a 3-man route, flat, over, kind of middle depth, and then that corner route vertically. And they have run that. I'm going to do hopefully a bye-week study. I mean, literally at least 50 times this season, which is fine. It's just part of their core concept that just do it in different ways, in different formations and alignments. And just, it's the old saying of less plays, more ways, just, more ways to do the same thing, present it differently to the defense, but still have the same read and just have it be automatic here for the offense. And it's been really effective overall. To me, the story of this game offensively, besides Russ, is just, I thought the dirty work that the guys did as a unit really helped. I talk about the receiver blocking. I thought the receivers blocked their butt off in this game. Van Jefferson on crackbacks and digging out safeties on crack toss or cracking. He went
DNs. Flying on one of those, did he?
Jefferson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to feel it, but you make it work. You just get in the way is kind of the idea. I thought Pickens blocked. He was looking for guys. Watch on that Jalen Warren, that big 3rd down conversion they had, that dump off to Warren on 3rd and 8, which got a touchdown drive started. As soon as Warren catches it, you got Austin and Pickens looking for blocks, picking up guys and helping clear the path for a 1st down, moving the sticks. Scotty Miller out there, driving his feet. Just everyone doing those little things. Jalen Warren in pass pro is so stupid good in pass pro, picking up those blitzing linebackers, those kind of creative pressure looks the Jets like to run. Chip in Kinlaw, getting him off balance. And so I just think, guys that put their hand in the pile, that do those extra things, that spring guys for additional yardage or pick up, linebacker and protection to let Russ throw a moon ball downfield. Those small things that don't show up on the stat sheet really go a long way. And if you can just replicate that going forward, there's enough talent here offensively to really make this offense go. And, oh, by the way, Dave, this offense, I know it's not cause for celebration for other teams, but I'm going to celebrate their average. They're 16th in points per game. We've reached average, which has been such a hard bar to find for many, many years. And so right now they are literally smack dab in the middle, 23 points per game. And I'll do a little dance for that because it's been a long time we've said this offense is even average, and hopefully with that 37-point showing can be more than just average.
And look, have they benefited from the defense setting them up in positive positions? Yes.
Sure.
But, this team, obviously, one of the things that we said going into this year is the defense is going to play a huge, huge part in if this team has success. And they were benefactors of some short fields in this one. And boy, at our opportune times too, because right there before the first half, man, it was looking like they were going to go down, without making, what did they have at that point before they got, they just had the 2 field goals, right? Before the Pickens touchdown there. So the defense obviously helped play a spark in the offense late in the first half, because you do kind of wonder how the complexion of that game changes if you're down, because who knows what the Jets drive would have done, yada, yada, right before halftime, but they were already down 15-6 at the time. What does that do coming out of the half? And did the Jets got
they got the ball at half.
Yeah, they got the ball first half. So that first interception by Beanie Bishop really changed the complexion of things.
Oh, yeah, that was certainly a game changer in this one. So what we said before the season was, if this offense can be average, if the defense can be top 5 in points per game allowed, 2 attainable things, they're gonna make the playoffs games. And they're gonna win games and hopefully win a playoff game. And right now they're the number 2 scoring defense in football, and they're the number 16 scoring offense in football. So that recipe is there. Again, do you want more for the offense? Sure, can Wilson provide that more and more? Hopefully, but you just figured if you could get to those 2 attainable goals, then you were setting yourself up for success. And I know the talk is right now in some of the national and local media, Super Bowl for Pittsburgh. I'm not at that point yet, but I'm at the point where this team, as it currently looks, and there's a lot of season to play, but they can win a playoff game. Like, I'm confident more and more that they can finally get over that hump and finally win a playoff game, something they've not done since 2016. So I think that's what Wilson is showing, what this offense, what this team can become.
Well, as we talked before the season started, this team had to make hay in the first half of this schedule overall, and they are doing that now. You can't let your guard down, obviously, because with the Giants, you're coming off of a big win against, which I still think was a Jets team that just did not play well offensively overall, had their issues on defense with some injuries and all, but top to bottom, I think they beat a good Jets team this past week. The Giants are not on the Jets level here, but regardless, you had to make hay in the first half of the schedule. They are doing it. They are doing it with their fair share. Look, injuries happen all the way around. Look what happened to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just in one game this past Monday night. They're losing both your wide receivers, one for the season and one for an extended amount of time there. And that was a team that you were thinking, okay, that team's probably going to make a playoff push there. The Steelers, like other teams, have had their fair share. They've worked through that overall. It feels like they're getting the bye. I mean, is there ever a bad time for a bye week? No. But to have it right slap dab in the middle of the season, especially when you've got all these divisional games coming out of shoot the second half, and with at least, and you've obviously got one more game to get through before you get to the bye week, it feels like this team is getting healthy, going to get some guys back, and barring them having any more serious injuries, they are setting up for probably as best as you could probably hope for of a nice, successful first half, and the ability to have a success. And look, the whole dynamics of this thing has changed a little bit in the back end of the schedule. The Cleveland Browns weren't even the Cleveland Browns most people thought they would be in the first half of the season. They've lost Watson now for the season,
which might be an upgrade. I was kind of looking forward to seeing Deshaun Watson, to be honest with you.
But I mean, they've had injuries. Conklin, I think, is banged up and has been banged up, and they've got to play. The Browns have got to play the Ravens this week here. So I mean, what's the attitude? This team's just going to be playing out the string after their Week 10 bye. You know. So what does that do to the back end of the schedule?
Cooper's gone. Yeah, you don't have to worry about Amari Cooper anymore. It's good.
Right. So even though you do your best at the start of the season, when the schedule comes out to say, well, they'll win this one, they'll lose that one, circle this one, circle that. Yeah, so many things happen during the season, and the dynamics have shifted a little bit. Washington's a little bit better than what most people thought they would be. That's obviously a team the Steelers will play coming out of the bye there. The Eagles don't look as overly I mean, they got Saquon Barkley, but I mean, they've had a couple of issues there. Obviously the Bengals are going to be a force. The Ravens are obviously going to be a force. Those are two tough games. The Chiefs in there, but I'm not ready to put them in there just yet. But I mean, I as I mentioned coming out of the podcast the other day, you really have to, off of a one game of Russell Wilson at quarterback against a team like the Jets, you really have to question your thoughts on what the upside of this team is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far down the road here. I'm just taking this thing game by game, and that's why I've always kind of thumb my nose at the preseason predictions and record and guessing, because you just never know how a season's going to go. You might have an idea about the week 2 team you're going to face, what their makeup will be like, but the week 13 game is just guessing. And I was never quite as daunted by that AFC North schedule as others. It was quirky. It was weird. It's going to be difficult, going to be physical, but yeah, Pittsburgh is beaten the Ravens 6 of the last 7 games. They play Lamar better than basically any other team. They have not had a below 500 divisional record since I think 2003, which is by far the NFL's longest streak. And yeah, the Browns are a complete mess right now. So there's reason for optimism that they're not going to run the table against the AFC North, but they're going to be in every game and hopefully go 4-2. If you go 4-2 in the division where Pittsburgh's currently at, you're sitting pretty, going to be competing for the AFC North crown probably until the very end. So optimism, I think, in that regard for sure.
My biggest contention with the whole thing was every week you're saying we got to get up for AFC North ball, and you got 4 weeks in a row now where you're going to go.
Sure.
We got to get up a little bit higher for AFC. Just the totality
This
of it
cumulative
being
effect,
right.
yeah.
Right. The cumulative effect of it makes it tough. That was my biggest thing. Initial look at the schedule when it came to the back end there, second half.
No, I get that for sure. And then you put the Chiefs and the Eagles as your other games, which the Chiefs have their struggles, but I still am never going to be comfortable facing Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And that'll be a really interesting game to litmus test. So, yeah, all stuff for down the road. But I think in this game against the Jets offensively, just sound, fundamental, guys putting their hand in the pile, good game plan. The Jets were kind of a mess overall, in Pittsburgh really rolled in the second half and imposed their will, and the Jets were waving the white flag by game's end.
And look, if you get a win against the Jets on Monday night, you're sitting at 6-2, and 10 wins you would think are going to get you in the tournament, right? Especially with the way the AFC seems to be shaking out right now. Hopefully, those words don't come back to bite me. But 10 wins. You need 4 of your last 8 games. I mean, you can't win 4 of your last 8 games.
Yeah, it'll be incredibly disappointing if they can't do that.
Right. So I agree with you that they have done what they're supposed to do so far. Obviously got a key Monday night game coming up, but if they get the win there, you have to at least think this team's getting in the tournament. And then I think what we see in these final half of the season will give us more hope that this team can not only win one playoff game, but maybe a couple of them, depending on how, where they have to go or who comes to them.
Well said. Defensively, all 22 in this Jets game. What stuck out to you, Dave? Any impressions?
Man, they, Aaron Rodgers was not great. B, they did a good job against the run in totality. C, the tackling early in the game was not great at all, especially some of the angles and some of the attempts in that. They cleaned a lot of that going up overall. I liked how they at least attempted on a few plays to kind of disguise some coverages. They did not have to. I think the NFL's All-22 specifically, if you use the filters to try to filter out by blitz or whatnot, against Aaron Rodgers, if a team sends 5, or more, they count it as a blitz, even though it's all 3 down linemen and your 2 outside linebackers.
Yeah, that should not be a blitz.
Right.
Take issue with that.
Right. But they count that. So I think in totality, there's what was it, a list, 7 or 8 plays and all, but they really didn't blitz, traditional blitz all that much. What do you have? 3 times, 4 times?
I'll have to pull it up. I was looking the other day. I have a 25% blitz rate in terms of what we consider a blitz, which would be sending anything that's not a down lineman or an outside linebacker, which is about their seasonal average, which I think was around 20% coming into this game.
But are you counting run blitzes as well too, or?
Well, if it's a pass play and an inside linebacker rushes, then I consider that a blitz, whether it was designed
even
to be
a green dog or anything like that. Or
there's some context where green dogs still count because it's hard to know exactly for sure a green dog, what isn't a green dog, and I just say what happens on the play. Let me pull up the exact numbers here for this Jets game. Just give me 1 second. But I think they were smart. They were situational. They didn't blitz a ton in this game. The numbers are about their averages. They showed a lot of those sim pressures, which I think was the important part, was to give the illusion of blitz that really made some guys stay in the block or Rodgers get the ball out of his hand quickly, all those kinds of things. So let me just try to kind of messily sort this out. I got 10, what I have charted as blitzes on 39 possibilities, which is 25.6%. So a little above the season average, but not dramatically different.
All right. But yeah, I thought that was significant there. They didn't get a lot of pressure overall, but you didn't probably think that they would with as quick as Aaron Rodgers likes to get the ball out. Alex Highsmith played a phenomenal game.
Oh yeah, he was better than I even thought he was watching live. I mean, he was just owning Tyron Smith. And that's I mean, he's an older left tackle, but that's still a really quality left tackle in Tyron Smith.
And against the run as well, too. He did a phenomenal job of setting the edge out there for a guy to come back up, because you kind of wonder, you miss those games with a groin coming back, and, is he going to be 75, 85? No, he looked good to go, man. And
he played normal amount of snaps. What was the snap count in this one? It was pretty heavy amount, I think, right? It was 75%.
Yeah, I don't have the total in front of me, but he played. He was on the field a bunch overall. But I thought the tape was real kind for him. Peyton Wilson, you see some. I mean, there are a couple of plays where, especially I think the TFL or the one that went for like 1 or 2 yards. I forget what it was. You really see the sideline ability and that speed with him on there. As far as communication overall in the back end, it felt pretty clean overall. Now there is that one on that on the crosser that it ended up looking like it was Patrick Queen's responsibility. But I think if you watch that play all the way through the end, Patrick Queen claps at Wilson. I think Wilson was not supposed to get as deep on that, supposed to man that underneath zone a little better to help prevent that. So there it seems like there was some confusion or something within that. I thought Aaron missed on one of those. I think he even mentioned Devontae Adams kind of stumbled coming across, and they missed that one. Aaron said that he should have never thrown that first one, that first interception over the middle. I disagree with that. I just think Beanie Bishop made one hell of a play on that, carrying the pole runner within that. Beanie's got his eyes on Aaron the whole time. But even so, Beanie had to, who was the analyst that said how many people make that play or whatnot with that? I mean, the fact that he was able to flip his hips, not only do that, if he flips his hips and just gets a hand on that and bats it down, it's a fantastic play. But the fact that he gets turned around and he makes the interception on that makes it even that much more fantastic. So, and if he doesn't get a hand on that, that's a completion.
Yeah, and they're almost in field goal range at that point, and they're probably gonna kick a field goal and go up in the half, 18-6. Yeah, I mean that was. Yeah, I'm with you, because when Rodgers throws that, Beanie has his hips turned away from where that throw's going.
He's walling it off. Yeah,
it's cover two. He's opening his hips to the strength and carrying vertically, so he's got to get his hips around, then find the football and make the play. And I think if you're Rodgers, if you see that look again, you're gonna have to throw that ball again, because it's a good look. It's not a bad read. And Beanie just made, a one-handed catch too. Incredible play there. So yeah, I echo everything that you said. I think Peyton Wilson, that sideline to sideline chase, can't run toss plays against Peyton Wilson. He's going to chase it down. He's going to take the angle. He's going to get you out of bounds and make the stop there. I think once the tackling got cleaned up, then they were good. But on that play you mentioned with the miscommunication, that to me was my kind of hidden moment of the game. That pressure that Highsmith got on that play that helped force it. Rodgers throw incomplete that got them off the field on third down was big time, because if Rodgers hits that to Adams, he's got some room. Pittsburgh misses another tackle or two. Adams might hit that for a long play there. So I thought the pressure that Highsmith got was pretty impactful.
Right, I agree. And then you have a couple of your key guys make key plays at key times. We talked about the other day, the Watt bat down came at a very opportune time. The Keanu Benton on fourth down, very opportune time there. I thought Keanu Benton for in totality played a very strong game in this. We saw Cameron Hayward do some good things in here as well.
Ogunjobi looked pretty good.
Ogunjobi, looked strong up front. Trying to think. Well, Joey Porter Jr. did a fine job, I thought, this game overall. Came up and had to make a tackle. Continue to sing the praises of Deshaun Elliott, especially driving downfield. I mean, if somebody completes something up underneath and he's driving down, they're not getting away from him. He's going to, especially in situations where I think normally you're seeing those happen in like third down situations where they're kind of guarding the sticks, if you will. He's making sure he's getting them down on a good 1 or 2 yards short of the sticks. And when he's going forward, the other guy's going to go backwards in that situation there. So really good on him. him. Saw Deshaun Jackson come up and obviously make some tackles. Beanie had a key tackle for loss. The next play he was back on the field for, I think, after his first interception was that one there.
They announced Defensive Player of the Week yet? They doing that later and later.
Yeah, it used to. It feels like it come out by about 11 Eastern.
Yeah.
No,
it was like 9 a.m. they would drop it. Now they're kind of waiting. It's either going to be him. I was looking last night. It's going to either be him or Cody Barton. Barton for the Broncos had a big day, a fumble return for a touchdown, a sack, a forced fumble. I think they're going to give it to Barton, but I think it's going to be either him or Beanie. And so I certainly hope it's Beanie.
Did you? And the second interception by Beanie we talked about the other day, and I did not look to see if Garrett Wilson ever talked about that. I know Aaron talked a little bit about it on the Pat McAfee show, but once again, and Beanie said it after the game, he feels like he impacted play. And I just think because of the position, at least the depth that he was able to get on that play and the way he timed his jump and all like that, I just think that ball got up on Garrett Wilson quicker than he thought it would. Probably lost sight of it for a millisecond there, and that made a difference in the play. And then obviously once it bounced up, Beanie having the wherewithal to find the football and get it, and fantastic run back by him and all like that. But I mean, anytime a guy gets 2 interceptions in the game, you think that guy's going to be up for defensive player of the week. So we'll probably know here pretty soon. But and look, I mean, Beanie, they obviously were still trying to target him. He gave up a couple of quick slants in there, so that was one aspect of the Jets passing game that was successful. But he made enough plays, obviously, on positive for him to highly impact the game.
And he tackled those slants, which I don't want to sweep under the rug. I mean, yeah, they're slants, but they don't go for yak. They don't go for 30 yards. Maybe the one, I think, on Wilson later in the game went for decent yak, but there were a couple early where we were just getting guys on the ground. Okay, they get 8 yards. It is what it is overall. You're tackling some big people. Lazar, they had some bigger receivers out there. So, yeah, just overall, a really good defensive showing, some good post-snap rotations. I mean, I basically echo everything that you said. Don't have a whole lot more to add.
Right.
I do want Keanu Benton to stop being the king of the almost sacks. Still no sacks this season. He's just gotten so close. Not really all his fault sometimes, but I still want him to develop. The club over still works, and it worked in this game, but it's not that secondary move that he has that can really, I think, open up, make that club over even more effective, because there are times where he's just trying to do it again and again, and sometimes the center, the guard sits on it and is able to stop it and anchor down. So I do want to see that secondary move from Ben, but I just thought top to bottom, once the tackling got cleaned up, the group was in really good position overall.
I kind of thought he'd have like 5 sacks this year, so he better get busy.
All right, Dave, I think that covers it well then. Special teams. I mean, I have yet to really go through the All-22 on that. You should do that a little bit later in the week, but just, again, just excellent across the board.
Right. And look, anytime, I mean, just in general with this team, if you hold a team to 17 or under points, this Steeler team is going to have a chance to win some games. I mean, it's pretty evident. You hold a team like the Jets to 15 points like you did. I mean, the last 2 weeks. I mean, well, actually, you look at the last 3 weeks here, held Dallas to 20. And obviously, all that came down to that last touchdown that they had. You held the Raiders to 13. You hold the Jets to 15. You go back earlier in the season, they held the Falcons to 10. They held the Broncos to 6. Held the Chargers to 10. That's what Mike Tomlin wants to do, And if you get this, like you highlighted, get this offense or point scoring to at least average in the league, man. If you hold that average where it's at right now, they're going to win some games.
Yeah, they're at 23 points per game right now. And
that seems like 33.
It does. Yeah, it might as well. I mean, it feels like, because they've been sitting in the 17, 18 point. We said, I think earlier this year, like 21, 22 was kind of our target. Hopefully do better than that. But like, it's the goal minimum 21, 22, and they're at 23 and they're rolling 30 plus points each of the last 2 weeks. They got a chance to do it again against the Giants. I mean, the Giants defense is better than their offense. They're top 15 defense statistically, but they can certainly make some hay against the Giants.
And look, another key statistic here that Mike Tomlin preaches and obviously is important. This team is +9 in the takeaway giveaway, and I think I didn't check it since I don't think anything changed since the Monday night game, but I think only the Buffalo Bills are ahead of them at +10. So if you're not giving the ball away, and if you're taking the football away on the other end, that, and if you're having the explosive plays to go along with it, that's another reason that at least on a box score watching aspect, you're going to win some games.
I think they've been plus in the turnover margin every year since either 2019 or 2020. They've been, plus whatever, usually towards the top of the list, including this year. And so that is certainly a game changer. And again, I go back to, it wasn't an impact so much this week, although a little bit, but the red zone defense has been excellent, not only in terms of holding teams to field goals, but taking points off the board with interceptions or blocked field goals. I mean, there's a reason why. What are they in yards per game right now? I mean, they're good. Let me pull it up here. But they're not as good as they are in points per game. That really speaks to, I think, the red zone defense this year. They're second in points per game allowed. They're eighth in yards per game allowed. I think last year really highlights it all the better. Last year they were 21st in yards allowed. They were sixth in points per game allowed, and that really comes down to red zone play. When you have 8 red zone takeaways, as they did last year, when you had 4, as you did this year, when you got some blocked field goals that don't show up on the stat sheet, but take points off the board, that's why you're kind of punching above your weight. Teams will move the ball. It's 2024. They're going to get yards. It's hard to really stop that in totality. But can you buckle down situationally in the red zone when things get tight? Pittsburgh is as good as anybody in those moments.
Right, absolutely. You want to see a red zone percentage go. One thing offensively, if you're a defensive coordinator right now, let's say you're the Giants going into this game, how do you want to defend this Steelers offense the way you see it so far? To me, okay, I'll let you answer I was going to answer first, but go. How do you schematically attack this Steelers offense as is coming out of the Jets game?
That's a good question. I think you got to stop the run. You're going to make Pittsburgh one-dimensional because they still want to run the ball and they still want to stay on schedule. So probably some early down run blitzes. That does lead yourself to play more single high, 1-on-1 on the outside type of stuff, which gives you some concern there. But
right.
I mean, I think it all starts with being able to stop the run and probably send some extra people and probably some more one gapping than two gap and trying to penetrate, disrupt, and get those guys off track is probably how I start my game plan.
You probably almost have to play a lot of cover 3, right?
Yeah, well, if you're going to play 8 in the box and play tight, then you either play in cover 1 or cover 3 in most situations. So sure.
And then because you want the version of Rusell Wilson that's checking down,
Yeah, you don't want them to hit the big plays over the top, but you do know when you're playing 8 in the box, you got 1-on-1 on the outside, they're going to take some shots off of play action. So
right,
you got to balance all that. But I think it starts with being able to stop the run, and if you can do that, then you're going to put some stress on Pittsburgh.
And obviously, the Steelers are going to try to run the snot out of the football.
Right. That's why it's the Arthur Smith stat of their second in rushing attempts and their 32nd in pass attempts per game. And that is, in Smith's world, perfect balance. That is what he's ideally looking for. That's what his teams have strived to be in good years and bad years. Tennessee, I think in 2019, they were like that. A couple years in Atlanta, they were like that. Obviously more success with Tennessee than Atlanta, but that is where his teams. I mean, it's funny. I remember when Smith first got hired, we kind of had the discussion, would this kind of be a mesh of Smith's ideals and what Pittsburgh has done, where they kind of try to merge? No, it's been just the Arthur Smith offense. Smith. And that's not a bad thing. It's your personality, and it's obviously working, and the offense is better. I'm not critiquing it, but I'm just saying, like, it has been the true Arthur Smith experience. You got 4 running backs on the team right now. You got 5 tight ends on the team right now. You're second in rushing attempts. You're 32nd in pass attempts. One other benefit, too, I want to mention, 6 different Steelers have caught a touchdown pass this year. 6 different Steelers caught a touchdown pass this year. That is the most. They've matched that in years past, but if the 7th guy can catch a touchdown, that'll be the most since 2018. And so they're really distributing the ball to different people, getting more people involved, getting more people touches, which again is all hallmarks of the Arthur Smith offense, where typically it's not where one guy's going to catch 12 touchdowns. It's going to be like one guy catches 5, this guy catches 3, this guy has 2, we got a couple with 1. It has really been the literal Arthur Smith experience through and through.
I would like to see if you get more cover 3 stuff, some of those in breaking digs, stuff like that. Still not seeing enough. I'd like to see a few more slants mixed in if possible, but they did a good, that's the best the rub game has looked in a long time.
Yeah, they use bunches and rubs, almost exclusively for all the big pass plays they got. That's what they did. Last thing I just want to mention, and I've kind of noted this over the last couple of weeks. Anytime Pittsburgh picks off the ball, I just love watching the defense turn into blockers. Like they're immediately turning upfield. They're looking for a block and they're trying to provide a runway. You've gotten some really good interception returns by Bishop, by Dante Jackson.
Porter.
You got guys. Did Porter have one? On his run against Dallas. Yeah. Right. I mean, it was kind of more downfield, but yeah, that was a good run back for like at least 15 yards or so. So it's a small thing, but to me, it's not a small thing because if you can provide some blocks, you turn the interception, from midfield to the 1, from Jackson, from like the 40 to he got, I don't know, the 7, wherever he got to. So those are hidden yardage too, in terms of your run back. I don't know where Pittsburgh ranks in. We should look it up. Where does Pittsburgh rank in interception return yardage this year? I mean, I don't know if it's, I know Surtain and Denver had like a 99-yard one that might skew things, but I bet you Pittsburgh's up there. All right, Dave, we kind of talked about receivers earlier and receiver news, the news of the day here, and DeAndre Hopkins being traded to the Chiefs from Tennessee. I knew that guy was going to get traded. Like there was ESPN saying, "Oh, I don't know if they're going to deal." He was going to get traded because what use does Hopkins have to Tennessee right now? But that is another name off the board. A new potentially emerging name is the Rams' Cooper Kupp. A lot of rumors about him. He and Mike Williams might be the two last names to talk about when it comes to receiver trades. And so where do you come in on losing out on Hopkins? Are you upset about that? And where do you come in on potentially acquiring Cooper Kupp?
Well, look, Hopkins is an easy guy to root for. Been a fan of his. So, did I, at my heart of hearts, did I think he was going to come to Pittsburgh? No. Did I think he was going to get traded? Yes. I thought the possibility, especially with the way the Titans season has gone so far. Am I overly shocked it's the Chiefs? Am I overly shocked that what was it, a 5th that can become a 4th or something?
Yeah. Yep. Conditional 5th can become a 4th. I don't know the triggers for the 4th, but that's about what I expected him to go for.
Right. And when you look at his contract, it's a 1 year. I mean, it's basically this year, and then you see what happens. It sounds like the Titans are having to eat a little bit of that salary. I don't know the specifics on that just yet. Could the Steelers have done something similar? The answer is yes. Okay. How were they in on it? How close were they? I guess some people are trying to say that the Steelers really weren't in on him. Now, I don't know, Pony's one of these saying that apparently the Steelers weren't interested in DeAndre. Will we ever know that? And it's Pony, of course. But could they have done it? Yes. Am I surprised they didn't do it? No. I am interested to see how much of the salary it ends up that the Titans had to eat on this. But I mean, it's all water under the bridge. All right, Cooper Kupp, another guy that's really easy to root for. You do kind of wonder if such a trade, if indeed they trade him, it'll happen this week. I mean, we're already on Wednesday now. Teams are starting to get their preparations done for their upcoming games. Even though the Rams have not had a great season, they are technically still in this thing, especially with the trials and tribulations that the 49ers are going through with their wide receiver core right now. Are they really going to dismantle it this week? I would think not. But if they did lose this week, potentially with Cooper Kupp and his age and salaries moving forward, I don't think you can entirely rule out Cooper Kupp being dealt. Now, when you look at his salary this year, he's set to earn $15 million. They've already paid the $5 million roster bonus on him. So you'd prorate, let's just cut it in half, call it $7.5 million remaining thereabouts on Cooper Kupp this year. you would have to think of a team, supposedly they won, I don't know, second, third, whatever, for him. You would think that the Rams would have to eat a chunk of whatever's left of that 7.5 or thereabouts to get him dealt, especially to get higher compensation on him. Even if you went that route on it, say you had to pick up $3 million of his 2024 remaining salary, and it cost you a third round pick to do so. I think you have to even look and extrapolate this out even further. Cooper Kupp is set to earn $20 million in cash in 2025. All right. Mm-hmm. Is that something that a team like the Steelers would be willing to do without first trying to work out something with him ahead of a deal and say, hey, can we do something here? If we deal for you, can you let us know that once you get in the building, you'll sign off on this? I'm not so sure Cooper Kupp would be willing to do that right now. But he does have he is at risk, at even if he stays with the Rams or whatever team that he goes to, of not seeing that 7.5. Look, you're not going to give up a second or third round pick more than likely and turn around and cut this guy next March, right?
Right.
So I think the biggest thing when it comes to the Steelers specifically trading for Kupp is, could you make the money and all work this year? Especially if they eat some of that salary, yes. I think where it becomes interesting is past 2024, because once again, he's set to earn. When does he turn 32 actually?
Next June, I want to say. Next year. Before next year, though. The start of next year.
You're right. June 15th, he turns 32. So do you want to have a guy that's had some of the injury issues that he's had as of late, turning 32 before the season starts, that you're set to earn $20 million, and you have to make a decision on 7.5 million of that in March? That to me is something that Steeler fans are going to overlook in here.
Yeah, and then there's the price tag, which is my concern. I'm not against trading for Kupp in principle, but what is going to be the cost? Now, the reporters, they want a 2, and they're going to eat some salary, and that might, the more salary you eat, the more that you can get back in a draft pick. But I'm just worried about giving up too much for a guy that's 31, has been hurt a lot. I admit I've not been watching Cooper Kupp in particular the last couple of years, but I know he's hardly been available to be watched. He's played, I think, 21 of the last, or maybe 23 of the last 51 games possible. The last 3 seasons, has an ankle injury he seems to be recovering from. Hopefully will play in week 8, but he's been out since week 2. I'm just cautious on how much I'm going to give up for a guy like that.
I mean, schematically, could you make it work? I mean, he's a little bit different player, probably, obviously more suited in the slot, right?
I'd have to check. I mean, he's played inside, he's played outside. He's kind of one of the, not original, but a newer age, big slot type that teams have been copying, Godwin, Juju, etc. So, yeah, I mean, he can probably play all over. I'm not concerned. Yeah, schematically, it's not, I'm sure he can fit. He can help. Again, I've been dying for this team to add receiver help, but I'm just careful on giving up too much for a guy in Kupp where I don't know exactly how it's going to go.
Right. And once again, if he had more manageable salaries and all like that moving forward, to kind of justify the compensation, that'd make it a little bit easier, all within that. I'm not going to say impossible, because we've talked about this team being interested in wide receivers quite a bit this offseason, but it feels unlikely.
Yeah, I don't know exactly in terms of the likelihood of it happening or not. But if not Kupp, then is it going to be Mike Williams? Or are they going to sit there and surprise us with a name? Or is it going to be just no one and they're going to run it with the group that they have right now?
I think the name, and it's as unsexy as it is, I think Mike Williams is still the one probably to watch. Now, it will be interesting to see what happens with the Broncos and Cortland Sutton here. But the Broncos, if they continue winning, I think the Broncos play the Panthers this week. So, I mean, they're still technically in the thick of things, playing for a wild card at this point, because obviously Kansas City's in their division there. But I would, and look, Godwin, you gotta if you thought there was any chance that maybe a Chris Godwin, he's obviously out for the season. I mean, who else would even, I mean, I haven't looked at Olave, and some of those other ones and all like that. But I mean, the list was already felt like it was short enough as it is. And let's say you don't get a guy like Kupp here, it really feels like it's a Mike Williams or nothing type thing. If I'm being totally honest,
I get that. How much does Williams really move the needle if they were to acquire him?
Not much.
Yeah.
I mean, in totality, it doesn't feel like from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, it'll help a little bit. How much does it really help is probably a discussion to be had there. But I have to watch him a bit more, and I know playing time this year has also just been tough to come by for him.
All right.
So we'll see. Keep you posted on that. We don't know if Pittsburgh is interested. We know the Rams have been calling teams. There's probably some appetite on the Rams' part to deal him.
If they did trade for him, I would imagine it would be because they were able to work out something with his contract beyond 2024.
Okay. What do you think the compensation? What would you be willing to give up for Cooper Kupp?
I mean, you got to give me all aspects of this. You got to tell me what
you get them past 2024. They eat some salary. It's not.
I mean, I'd be willing to give up a third, I think.
It just feels too rich for me. Just feels too rich. I don't know. It just feels a little too hot for me to give up there.
All
right. Anything else here, Dave, to talk about from the week that was, or that still is?
Do we have anything on defensive player of the week yet?
I am not aware. I can try to check the NFL account. I hadn't refreshed Twitter too much today, but I have not heard anything if it's going to be Barton or Bishop. I'm not seeing anything from the league yet.
All right. Let's see here. Let's go. Shall we go to some emails?
Yeah, let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
All right, let me sort some out here. Nathan Casey says, Kupp cap hit would not be so bad, ? He says, if the Rams are willing to eat some of Kupp's money this year, such that his cap hit going forward is $20 million and $20 million for the next 2 years, that is actually a pretty good number for an elite wide receiver. The question then is Kupp still elite to pay $20 million? See that, Nathan, we just talked about that. That's a little rich. I mean, could they do it? Yeah, they could do it. And if you thought he was that $20 million player, you could make it work. It feels like you'd try to want to work that down,
Oh yeah. I mean, where would you even rank Kupp on the list of receivers? I'm not expecting you to have a perfect
when he's
answer.
Healthy, man, he's top 15, I feel like.
I don't know if he is even currently, and health is a big aspect. It's hard to just, if he's healthy, because he's not been healthy that often.
All right. Well, once again, if you could tell me what the back, working out past 2024 is, and if I could get him for a third, and if I knew he was healthy, I mean, what else you got to take a shot on, Well,
I don't want to just overpay, because what else is there to pay? That sounds with a twinge of desperation there.
All right. Well, they're probably going to end up getting, if they trade them, probably get like a third that's a conditional second or something along the lines of Devontae.
Yeah. What would you rather trade a third, just straight up third, we'll say, for Cooper Kupp, or a 6 for Mike Williams?
I mean, if I'm going to make a splash, I want to make a splash.
Yeah, I get that, but I've wanted this team to trade for receiver as badly as anybody. I'm a little cautious on Kupp, just given his age, given his health, and the cost it might take.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on here to see what Bryce has to say. Nice win. We've talked over the years about the Jets, about the Steelers running more quick hitting run plays to help their struggling offensive line. I really like the subtle adjustments Arthur Smith has made in run game, quick hitting run plays that almost felt like trap plays. Really good design and execution. Number 2, he says, how would you assess the play of Peyton Wilson in the game? Seems he got caught up in the trash some, was having trouble working off those blocks at times. Yeah, there were a couple of times where it felt like he was kind of, had some big guys on him. I thought overall, then obviously one of the coverage things that I pointed out there. Look, there was good and bad on the tape with Peyton Wilson in this one.
Yeah, I think certainly getting off of blocks and trying to be able to be a little bit stronger in terms of play strength needs to be worked on. I think out there in space, you really see him open it up and fly. And so, yeah, I think there's still some things on the touchdown that Hall had. I don't know exactly where Wilson's gap was supposed to be, but felt like he got cut off and stuck. And so, the screen they had, the screen that they ran to Hall kind of got pushed. The line was out, kind of blocking him a little bit. Not too critical of Wilson for that one, but there's some interior between the tackles things to work on, sure.
There was one instance, was it the tight end over to the Jets' right-hand side? He caught it and tried to stiff arm Wilson, and he knocked the hand down.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that?
Yeah, there on the right side. Yeah, that was great technique. That was a good open field tackle on Conklin. That's how you're taught. Yeah, to defeat the stiff arm, you knock the hand down and then tackle.
Right. So I thought that was a good technique that stuck out there. Bill Ewan writes in, I admit I was wrong. I should have trusted Tomlin. I'm tempering my excitement a little, though. If Pickens drops any of those 3 big plays like he did when Fields threw him, we are talking about a failed experiment. But play action was undeniably better, so that alone makes me think that this will work. Fields can watch and learn and be better for it. How concerned are you that Pickens will start dropping balls again? How much is that attributed to Russ's different ball flight? I mean, we could go through every game, right? And say, what if this is dropped? What if that's dropped? I mean, you got a large section of hypotheticals there,
Yeah, I mean, I trust that guy to catch him more often than not. Sure, he was dropping a couple, but I mean, I think that's atypical of him, and I would expect him to catch more than he'll drop going forward.
All right. Let's see. Oh, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers saying he would sign Beanie Bishop's balls for him? Oh, not. Hey, wait a minute. Phrasing. His pair of picks.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I don't know if it's actually going to happen. I'm not sure how they're going to make that work, considering they're not going to see each other. I don't know if you don't send those footballs up and ship them or whatever. But yeah, it's becoming a trend. But when you're old like Rodgers and with his resume, it kind of comes with the territory. I think kind of cool.
Let's see here from Jay in Buffalo, David Knox. I'm not as high on Wilson's performance as others. I really think his receivers helped him out in a lot of ways that they were not for Fields in recent games. My question is, what is the biggest trait Justin Fields lacks that a young Lamar Jackson has? Thanks for all the hard work. Lamar Jackson's become Lamar Jackson's still electric, and not that Fields is not, but it looks like Lamar still got that escapability that's just like he's on a joystick at times. Second is he's gotten a lot better reading the field. Overall, I think passing not only in between the numbers but outside of the numbers, he's gotten a lot better at. Obviously, him having a great running game over there is solid for Lamar Jackson. I just think Lamar's really has improved in a lot of aspects of his game overall, especially the passing element.
It's hard to say. I haven't sat down and really compared those two. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. I think the Ravens, my only answer could be I think the Ravens, had a better structure and culture for what, Lamar's had in Baltimore than what Fields had in Chicago. And they just really went all in on playing the scheme to Lamar's strengths and doing some pretty unique stuff in the run game when they had, Greg Roman. I think Todd Monken's done a good job for them. And so I just think they've really been able to go all in from basically day one for Lamar Jackson to really, tailor the scheme to him and make it work and utilize his strengths. And I don't know if Fields ever got quite that support. I felt like Fields was kind of fighting with his coaches to have a good scheme and do things he wanted to do, where in Baltimore, they were really more aligned and just had a better team overall, when you have better defense and, your defense plays lights out. You can kind of be that run heavy type of team. In Chicago, when you were playing from behind and constantly losing, it was hard to really get into a rhythm in terms of, marrying the run game with some of the play pass off of that. So it's hard for me to say for sure, but those are kind of some of the things that come to mind.
What was the biggest negative about Russell Wilson's game this past week? Was it the overall? Was it the technical underthrowing of those balls?
No, to me, honestly, some people haven't talked about it. I thought early in the game he was bailing on every clean pocket. Like he just kept rolling out to his right a half dozen times, and that got him into trouble. And he was missing some receivers. Even on that one that Calvin dropped that should have been caught, like he bails on a clean pocket. That's mesh sit. If he just waits, Jefferson's going to be open over the middle. You're going to hit that and move the sticks there on third down. So I know that's a tendency for him where he still likes to kind of roll out and have a cleaner line of sight, and the mobility is not where it was. He can still move a little bit, but it's not where it was a decade ago. So I think that's more of a longer term concern. His arm strength is good. I saw him throw the ball perfectly in the bucket in training camp with some timing and reps. I think the deep ball will be a little better, a little more out in front. I'm not worried about that, but I think him bailing on pockets is a concern.
Look, it sounds like a lot of people are like, okay, I'm cautiously optimistic about Russ now. That's okay, right? I mean, it's a one game sample size, right? And
yeah, don't buy Super Bowl tickets, but you can be optimistic, sure.
Or I mean, and you could be, I guess, cautiously pessimistic too, right?
I have less reasons for that.
Right. A lot of people that were all, we got people say, okay, I admit I was wrong, but.
Well, I mean, I think it's still just one game.
A lot of analysts doing this as well, too. Kurt Warner. I mean, go down the list of people say, Dan Orlovsky, several of these guys go, okay, it was good, but.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, it is still just one game, and you need more of a sample size overall, and so I understand that aspect to it, and so I don't want to be writing Super Bowl, tickets down or anything like that, but you just for it's just from a Steelers fan perspective of being so starved for just a decent passing game for the first time in forever is really refreshing.
All right, we'll take one more from David Ricards here. Good evening. Over the past 2 games, I've been watching Najee play behind good blocking and lamenting Omar passing up his 5th-year option. He says, I have felt he's often unfairly criticized for yards per carry stats while being hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I think some of that comes from people not liking the draft pick and allowing that to bias their evaluation of his performance. The kid has impressed me at every opportunity in his young career with his maturity and embodiment of what it means to be a Steeler. He says, I recall Dave predicting he'd get a deal this past offseason, even given his fungible perspective. I didn't fully predict. I said I was like 75% thinking because of the money lined up and all like that, but I didn't come right out and say he's going to get one. I thought there was a higher probability than most people that he would get a deal done after they declined that 5th-year option. Obviously, they didn't. He goes on to write, I recall Dave predicted he'd get a deal this past offseason, even with his fungible perspective. How do you feel currently about Najee given the emergence of undrafted free agent Jaylen Warren and your personal view of running back fungibility? For me, it's times like these I wish they'd revisit their policy on doing business in season, Dave writes. Look, I still subscribe to the fungibility aspect of it, but I thought that you already had a 1st-round draft pick invested in Najee. I think for what Najee is and has done, his ability to stay healthy, yada, yada, I thought, and the money lining up, I thought it was all there for the taking to make this thing right, assuming that you did not have to guarantee money past 2024. And for all we know, the Steelers lined up something that they thought was maybe close to the Ramondre Stevenson deal, and maybe who knows? All right. Fungibility thoughts aside, everything that we have seen from Najee so far, I thought the iron was hot to strike and do something that protected you past 2024 with Najee and set you up to have guys like Najee and Jaylen Warren for at least a couple more seasons here. So no, I still am in camp of running back fungibility. But once again, you draft a guy in the first round, you kind of hope that he's more than just a 4-year player for you, I would think.
Where do you stand right now? Again, I'm not into really predicting things mid-season because so much can change, but do you think he'll get a new deal in the offseason? Do you think he's gone? What a tag, which just seems unlikely, but what do you think happens?
And I feel like he's gone still. I mean, it feels like if he stays healthy the rest of the year and has even a better second half of the season than he's had first half of the season, there's going to be someone out there willing to pay him.
I agree. That's still where I'm at.
Guaranteed money. Because even if the Steelers end up doing something with him after the season, it's still only going to be the fully guaranteed money in 2025. I can't see them unless they made him the highest paid running back in the NFL. Which they're not. I just somebody's out there going to be willing to do it, I think.
Yeah, that's still where I'm at right now, but we'll see. I agree with the reader. I would have picked up the 5th-year option. That would have been the smart play. I really still can't quite understand why they didn't, but they didn't, and that's where we're at currently.
All right. What about that protection call? Well, I sent you this one the other day. Did you get the gist of Dashi Ellison asking about Wilson called Warren several times in this game? We also saw McCollum call out what looked like a change, sending Warren straight into a release from that protection. On those plays, there was immediate pressure that forced Wilson to roll out of the pocket. At least one of those was the play to Warren that gained a first down. He says his question is, do you think this is a design play, or did McCollum mess the protection scheme up with that call? Were you able to track that down?
Is this the one I referenced earlier about the third down where Pickens and Austin threw those blocks? Is that the one that you're referring to?
I saw it. I meant to chase this down. I got tinseled, sidetracked squirrel, and I didn't go back to relook at this after looking at it. So I'm drawing a blank on the way he's got this lined out here.
Yeah, I think it's that one. I hadn't gone back and watched it. I have to actually just pull it up right now. It's hard to tell. Does a center send it back out? They're both working in tandem, center quarterback into protection. I don't think McCollum is really responsible for sending the back out. He's kind of more sending for alerting the mic and pressure and which way the line's going to slide. So I don't think this was designed play call. They ran this earlier in the game. I'm just watching the play myself right now. They ran this earlier in the game. I'll have to go back and watch the earlier version of it, but I don't think McCollum was sending the back out.
All right, Dacia, I apologize. I should have rabbit holed that, but I got sidetracked, but we appreciate the email nonetheless. All right, Alex, go ahead.
A couple quick things here. We always forget to mention the jerseys. Color rushes are being worn. Yeah. That's going to be a lot of fun. So back-to-back games with, alternative jerseys. And so Pittsburgh always seems to do well in those, but they're 7-3 in the color rushes. They're undefeated in the block throwbacks they wore against the Jets. So that's good. And unfortunately, no Hall of Fame for LC Greenwood or Andy Russell. Both did not make the cut of 31 to be considered going forward for the Hall of Fame class of 2025. So I know we both agree that LC should be in the Hall. Unfortunately, this year, not his year, and to not make even the top 31 is not a great sign for his chances going forward.
Yeah. Kind of wonder how long he'll stay up in like he's resurfaced recently, because wasn't there a couple several years go by where he didn't even make it this far?
I know they've maybe changed some of the senior committee stuff, but yeah, I feel like he's been closer than he's been and still not all that close.
All right. Weird week here because of the game on Monday night. So we are scheduled to have a beat writer from the Giants on the Monday show, Monday morning. That'll give us a lot of time to recap going into the weekend. The first injury report for the Steelers won't technically come out until Thursday this week. So it'll be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday injury report for the Steelers this week. We'll be back on Friday talking. Well, I don't know. We'll start, I guess, slowly previewing the Giant stuff and going over what players have said, and obviously coordinator corner and all like that. So rest assured, we'll have a Friday show, and by then there'll be plenty to talk about, I'm sure. So
for sure.
In the meantime, I'll start losing my voice. Good time. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. And we'll be back on Friday. So, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.